Welcome, Dominique,
Thank you,
to
Ananda.
AuroTalks.
AuroTalks.
This is a program designed by SACAR, Sri Aurobindo Center for Advanced Research. We are in Pondicherry. And for celebrating Sri Aurobindo's 150th anniversary, birth anniversary, we have designed this program called AuroTalks. That is, talks given by eminent personalities about Sri Aurobindo and any world thinker. And in fact, I'm happy and I'm grateful to all of you. You have also contributed a beautiful article. And you have taken a comparison between Sri Aurobindo and J.D. Krishnamurti. Famous thinkers, philosophers, and they can be put together in some aspect. They don't come together in many aspects, but a couple of them are very good. So I read your article, extremely good. I can see the clarity of your thought in comprehending both the philosophies of J.D. Krishnamurti and Sri Aurobindo. But I think I would like you to clarify a few points so that the audience who listens to you can better understand. Because the written word is more dense. Perhaps not all readers can understand. So I thought of this device where the author himself or herself explains what you have written and explains and clarifies some doubts. So it's more in the sense of a clarification. It is not trying to see how much you have written or what you have written. You see, in comparing these two philosophers, right in the beginning you have made a remark, understanding the observer and the observed phenomenon. See, this is a very deep concept, especially for us, the Indians, because in Indian philosophy, we have this thought of the observed and the observer right from the Vedic ideas. So I was attracted to your idea right in the beginning. So you said even J.D. Krishnamurti has given a comment on this. So my eye caught that phrase of yours. But can you really expand a little more for the sake of the audience and the readers? What is the meaning, how J.D. Krishnamurti sees the phenomenon of observer and observed?
Thank you, Ananda.
Welcome there.
So, in the teaching of Krishnamurti, the concept, the notion of the observer observe is fundamental. Without understanding or self-understanding the observer, the observer stands for the me, the I consciousness.
Yeah.
So the I consciousness, the me, which is the center of ourself, when it looks at whatever it looks at the observed. And through that perception of the observed, he projects most of his background, which for most of us, we are unaware. The background is that which is conditioned. For example, the me, the observer, Dominique, I'm French. And I'm French, I'm a man. Actually, I'm 70 years old. And I think I'm a philosopher or a student of philosophy. So all of these are qualifications that my mind sees itself. So I see myself as being French, a man, 70 years old, a student of philosophy. So as a result, when I look at an object, I look at it through that background, which means I don't really see the object per se, meaning the object in itself. I see it through the color of my background. The background is a conditioning which is unique to each one of us. Each observer has a unique background. Even though there is a common background, meaning that a human being is a human being.
Right.
We all share the humanity. But then a human being may be more greedy or less greedy, and so therefore that will already change, modify the way we look at life. So
1 minute here, Dominic. I would like to point out something here. When you are saying the word observer, you are using one sense, the sense of the seeing. Say somebody is blind. So what happens to him? He's not observing with his eyes.
So there's nothing.
So there, who is the observer?
Nothing is changed.
Right.
So he may not see with his eyes.
Right.
But then within his own blindness, the mind is still operating.
Right.
And he will have subtle perceptions of the outer world through the sound, through the touch. So he will have still an interpretations, a sensuous interpretations through the touch. That will create a sensations, and through that sensations, there will be the observer. The observer will be the outcome of the sensations, which will be intensified, being blind. So since he can't see,
okay,
it will intensify.
I got that point, but I have still a same further question. Now, behind these senses, who is the person who is observing, who is seeing, who is hearing? Is there somebody else? Because you said, okay, senses, eyes, but behind this, somebody must be there. Somebody is common to all my senses. Who is it? It's not Dominic.
So there is two states.
Yeah.
There is the unconditioned state.
Right.
The being which is unconditioned, and then the conditioned state. So the observer either is linked to that pure being, and so that if he's linked to that pure being, he's living in the essence of spirituality.
Right.
But if he's not in touch with that essence of spirituality, he lives in the duality of separateness. Separateness is caused by identification. Identification primarily with one's body. My body and the mind is encased in the body. And so thought, which operates through me, operates through that illusionary separations. And that creates the observer and the observed phenomena, a duality.
Yes.
Separation is a duality.
Again, I'm sorry to interrupt. You see, you used a word, behind that there is a pure being. When you said behind all this phenomenon of senses, you are identified with a pure being. Now, when I come to Sri Aurobindo, which you know better, but I'm going to the Vedas, the Vedanta. This pure being, they would call it as a consciousness. They would say it's a pure consciousness with which I'm identified. So you can call it either a being, what the Upanishads call as the Brahman or Sachidananda, or a pure consciousness. So J.D. Krishnamurti also may be referring to some kind of a pure consciousness or pure being. So this is only
This is very true. But the point that the teaching of Krishnamurti, Arrest himself, is with what he calls the what is. What is the actuality of the being as he is, as he or she is. So the observer at the point of time is not the pure being.
Yeah.
At the point of time here and now, there is a duality, and that duality is brought by the illusion of separations, and this is what is functioning in a momentum of time. In a momentum of time, there is a movement of separations, and because there is separations, there is desire. You desire that from which you are separated. So the object which is there, you are attracted to the object because you are separated. So,
1 minute. Sorry, I mean, you're speaking such deep philosophy. I have a lot of things to ask you. You see, you use the word an illusion of separation.
the illusion of separation,
Of separation.
which is not an illusion for someone who is separated. For the one who is separated, it's not an illusion. For him, you are you, I am I.
Yeah.
We're not unified at all.
But why are you calling it an illusion? It's a reality. You and me we are separate. It's a reality, not an illusion.
Exactly. It's not an illusion.
Right.
This is an actuality. The actuality is that through the observer, I create the observe, and through that, we are not meeting. So, and that's not an illusion.
It is not an illusion.
This is an actuality. But that actuality is the source of conflict. Why it is a source of conflict? Because through that divisions, which creates oppositions, we don't meet. Yoga means meeting, union. We are not in yoga. But yoga, it's a sadhana, because we are born ignorant. We are not born enlightened. But nature has put in us a consciousness, and that consciousness in us will never be satisfied until he has that ultimate union, which is ultimate bliss. Before, through separation, we search for happiness, but we have pleasure and pain and separations and a union which doesn't last. Why it doesn't last? Because it's an union in separateness. It's not a union in oneness.
Dominic, can you tell me a little more? What keeps us separate, you and me? What is it that keeps you and me separate? Is there something within us? Because if we are identified with a pure being or a consciousness, and yet we say the reality is that we are separate. What is that separateness, N-E-S-S?
It's the identifications of consciousness, mind, with the body. That means when I look at you through the filter of the mind, and the mind look at you through the filter of the body. So this is what we call a psychosomatic functions of mind and body. So we don't look at the essence, the pure universal essence.
But sir, I'm sorry. If you say it's the mind which is really making the separateness, what about the animal? There are two tigers who also know that we are separate, they fight each other. But they don't have a mind like we have. So there's something again there that keeps them separate. One attacks the other.
The whole spectrum from all of this is a spectrum of what we call in Indian philosophy avidya. That's a spectrum of the manifestations unfolding itself in ignorance with a capital I, meaning that everything from the mineral, the vegetable, the animal and human realm, it's an evolution which is undergoing through the illusion of separations caused by ignorance, which is avidya. But nature has put into us the discerning intelligence, which has to, through sadhana, be awakened. Right. And only through the sadhana, the awakening of intelligence, of discernment, can we resolve that illusions of separation. I say illusion of separation because in actual fact, nothing can exist by itself. Everything is interrelated. So in actual fact, we're living in a wholeness of life, but its focus, that wholeness of life, is focused into an individual form. And that individual form, it has various instruments of expressions. And the animal, the expression of the animal is essentially the vital being, the vital expression through appetite, through food, through the libido.
But I'm a little not too sure if the word avidya can be applicable to the animals and to human beings or only to animals, because the word avidya is self-ignorance. That means non-knowledge. Vidya is knowledge, is non-knowledge or limited knowledge. So the word knowledge doesn't apply to animal, it applies only to the human being who has a mind. So maybe we have to delete all the animal, the plant, the fish world from the realm of ignorance. Ignorance comes only on the level of the human being. Am I right?
We become conscious of ignorance with the mind, with the mental apparatus. But nonetheless, previous to that, the animal realm, vegetable, and the mineral are in a state of unconsciousness.
Unconsciousness,
and that unconsciousness means non-conscious, while conscious, because the animal is conscious, but he's not conscious of the greater world, of the universal world. He is only conscious through his organisms.
Yeah.
He's only conscious, so he's tied up to his organisms, and he can't escape from it. That means sexuality or productions, food, and territory. And then distractions. So cats go search for, they all have their own little pattern, little journey.
Well, I think you have clarified quite a lot. I'd like to go to the next point, which you have again brought out here very aptly. You see, you have spoken about the psychic being in J.D. Krishnamurti and in Sri Aurobindo, another common point. But is it the same kind of interpretation they have of psychic being, or they have the difference?
It's an excellent question and a very complex question, because you see the differences between, one of the differences between Sri Aurobindo and Krishnamurti is that essentially Krishnamurti was he was brought up to be the world teacher. We won't talk about that aspect, but basically he was a teacher, meaning that he was traveling throughout the world, and throughout the world he was giving talks. And through his talk, he was mainly concerned of the state of consciousness of mankind, and with the immense problematic of mankind, the war, the exploitation of man by man, the pollutions, the conflicts. And so for Krishnamurti, as a practical thinker, because he was there to help mankind, but not help mankind in an abstract way, but in a concrete way. So as a result, he will travel to different countries, and his teaching will change. So I come back to Psychic Being, will change. So he will speak in France in a certain manner. But when he came to India, because it's a different ethnic, with a different conditioning, different background, he will use a different language. So he will adjust his language with
according to the country.
But what is interesting is that in my article, I mentioned a little extract from a book called Self-Preparations, which he has written when he was in his early stage of his life. And so in the early stage of his life, somehow he was, to my understanding, he was closer to all the insight of Sri Aurobindo. But without developing any of his insight like Sri Aurobindo has done in his remarkable works on life divine, the synthesis of yoga, the letters of yoga.
Oh, just by the way, did J.D. Krishnamurti read Sri Aurobindo, you think? Or?
So he's quite unique, Krishnamurti. He was not a reader of philosophers. Maybe at the beginning of his life, because he was grounded, taught, educated by the Theosophical Society. But then he broke away from all of that. And so as a result, he rejected the language of the Theosophists, not because it was untrue, but because the language was bringing a certain shaping of the mind, a certain conditioning. And Krishnamurti wanted to awaken the mind and free the being of free consciousness from all conditioning, whether it's good conditioning or bad conditioning, whether one wants to be virtuous and one is not virtuous and wants to become virtuous. For Krishnamurti, this is the wrong way of looking at life. But to come back to the psychic being, so in his self-preparation, he said one of the most important, veuillez m'excuser, important factors in self-growth. It's the awakening of the true soul. Mm-hmm. And the awakening of the true soul is in his later teaching, is what he called mutation of consciousness. The mutation of consciousness is basically a consciousness which is conditioned by the ego, and the ego is a result of the world of the phenomena, the world of form, reactions between different forms. And the awakening of the true soul, it's awakening of being, which is in touch with the essence of life. That means when I look at you and I see the essence behind the form, but that essence is indivisible to the universal stream. So when one is awakened to that true being, the soul, to the true, one is directly in touch with truth, because the soul is linked to that indivisible essence. So therefore there is no anymore the observer observed as separated. There is a unified field of being which is manifesting through oneself, through mind, through emotion, and through body. They become the instrument of the psychic being. The differences with Sri Aurobindo has developed a remarkable philosophy, spirituality, insight into the evolutionary process of the earth, because evolution is happening on the earth, and all the strats that we spoke about it before, the physical, the vital, the material, the animal, vegetable, the animal, and humans, it's a series of transformations provoked by nature for an evolutionary purpose. And with man, there is an advance. Nature has created a subject and object. That means a consciousness which thinks. Man, woman, we are object of nature, because nature has created a body, a mind, emotions, a vital being, physical being, and as well we are subject. Through that, we look at the world through that. Whereas the animal are mainly what we call in Indian philosophy.
But when you say the same word, we are the subject, does that subject have a name?
Subject and object.
Yes, but is there a subject? What is the subject in me? Is it my mind, my feelings, my body? What's my subject?
So for a long time, the subject is with what one is identified. If one is identified fully with the body, the subject would be the body, the physical consciousness.
Right.
If one is identified with the vital, with the appetite, with the desire, one would be the vital being, right, the desire self. And if one is identified with the mind, it will be the thinking. And that's what Sri Aurobindo will call the ordinary mind, right, the thinking mind. And it's the human stage. When we reach that thinking mind, we are in a human stage. And the psychic being is behind all of that. Is none of these things.
Right.
These are a long evolutionary process brought about by nature for a distinct purpose. And that distinct purpose is to develop from the unconsciousness instrument of expression which become more and more conscious. But through the ego, they can never be conscious, fully conscious. They can only be partial conscious, and conflict is the outcome of that partial consciousness through identification of the body, the vital, the emotional, and the mind, which are all self-centered. With the psychic being, self-centeredness is blown up. There is no separate self. There is no me. There is an openness, and there is a connectedness. So there I am, Dominique, with the psychic being. I'm completely at peace because I'm connected with a universal stream of being, expressed in a unique fashions into my being. And the purpose of creations is that being which is awakened after become co-participator, co-creator, and not be creating a new world, but with the material of beauty, of goodness, of love, of unity, because the psychic being lives with a unified field of being. He doesn't live, he's not enclosed in his form. So if Dominique is enclosed in his form, I'm French, I'm 70, I'm this, I'm that, I'm enclosed. But there, I'm free from that. Nonetheless, I'm still French, conventionally. I'm not stupid. You know, the passport, yeah? If somebody asks me what nationality, I say French, but psychologically, I'm not identified. So conventionally, I use the terms because I'm a part of a society, and so therefore, this is a convention within the society for communication. But unfortunately, for most people, they take these conventions to be the truth, and that's where they go wrong. You see, one day.
Yeah, I think
that's part of
together Krishnamurti and Sri Aurobindo.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, this question of the psychic being is very important for both the philosophers.
Yes.
But you have brought it out very well. But there's one more thing that, you see, your essay has beautiful things, but there are some blocking points. You have written a sentence called, "Thought is always old and therefore second-hand."
Yeah, that's a good one.
Now, how do you justify this thought is always old? And why do you say therefore is a second-hand thing? Can I not think of a future? Say, somebody thinks of a beautiful future, which is not old. Say, for example, I think of a Matrimandir dome, which has a golden light over that. It's something of the future, which has not been thought of in the past. So it is not always old. That I'm not thinking of the past is old.
You see, there we have to distinguish thought from intelligence.
Right.
Thought, we have to see the genesis of thought, how thought occur in our consciousness. For example, there is a tree, and the tree, it's the image of the tree. With my senses, I have the image of the tree, and with my mind, I put the name tree. And then afterwards, that name becomes a thought.
Yeah.
And that becomes static. That means the tree is a recognizable item. Thought recognized and is stored in memory. So when I see the tree, afterwards, I don't look at the tree because the tree itself, I look at the image of the tree and what my idea is about the tree. And that's thought in that context. Right. And thought is always old because it never sees the freshness of the tree. To go and see the freshness of the tree, one has to see directly the tree without the thought pattern, without the informations, the knowledge acquired, the ideas that we have about the tree. That's in that sense. Right. Nonetheless, thought can, in your example with Matrimandir and the light, thought can be inspired by truth, but it doesn't come from the same. When thought is in tune with the universal energy, a universal essence, then it is the intelligence of that universal essence which is going to inspire thought. But then that thought is not static. That means you are free from the staticity of thought. Ordinary man is completely caught in the staticity of thought. That means he meets you, he doesn't see you anymore because he saw you yesterday. So in that way, you are reduced to a thought pattern. You are a thought. So he sees you, but he sees you with the image of the past and the thought. Whereas thought, which is the expression of that universal intelligence, is not anymore the same. It's a thought which is nourished by truth. But
can there be any thought without a reference to any object? So here you give the example of a tree.
Yes.
But I can think of something where there's no object at all. If there's an object, then it becomes old. But I'm saying I don't have an object in my thought.
There is thought, which is, I took a simple example. Then there is psychological thought, meaning that, for example, yesterday we had a little fight about something. Then my mind is resentful. Then thought is stored in the memory, I've been hurt. Next time I see you, I don't see you. I'm resentful towards you. I may say hello, I may not say hello. Or if I say hello, I'm a bit hypocrite. I don't really want to say hello, but I say hello. So this is psychological thought.
I understand.
And then there is pure thought. So there, pure thought is when you're free from the desire self and from the physical mind. The physical mind which sees this is this is that, and it doesn't go any further. When you are awakened to pure thought, you are awakened into looking. Pure thought is looking, observing. But that looking, it depends from which background, where that looking is coming from. If it's still linked to the ego, it will be partial looking. So the thought will be partial. It will be a fragmented thought. If the thought is directly in touch with the higher reality, the spiritual reality, then that thought will be a receptor. It's not a creator of reality, it's a receptor.
Well,
but
coming to
in
the
ego, it misinterprets.
Right.
And that thought, which is pure reason, which is open to reality as a whole, it becomes inspired, it becomes intelligence working through thoughts. So this is to qualify to discern between the genesis of the thought. Where does thought come from? Does it come from the physical mind, from the vital mind, this taking the terminology of Sri Aurobindo, or the lower mind, or the intellectual mind? All of this thought is operating, but it does not operate in the same manner depending from which.
Well, in the same context of discussing the thought, can you throw light on Sri Aurobindo's idea of real idea? What does he mean by real idea?
Beautiful. I think the real idea is one of the most complex for a mind, a mental consciousness, you understand, because the idea of the minds are not realities. Real ideas, Sri Aurobindo specify ideas, but real, they are truth, which are we could say, in a reservoir of the absolute, of the transcendental realm. They are there, and then there are seeds for manifestations. And then they are sent to cosmic consciousness, or cosmic spirit.
Yeah.
And then the cosmic spirit, which organizes all the energy of the universe in its different realms, uses these real ideas and manifests them. So they are actual potential, but they are real potential. Somehow it's real ideas are an unfoldment through the creations, through the dynamic creative creations. They are what sustain the creations. And somehow the creation can only be what it is because of the real ideas which sustain the creations.
Well, just to add a little more what you're saying, real idea in Sri Aurobindo is actually, he calls it the supermind.
That's
the level of the supermind. The synonym of supermind is real idea.
Yeah.
And there you have got the same idea that it is not only the origin of ideas, but it is the origin of the creation itself, or manifestation of the universe.
Mm.
So he calls it real because it is the truth consciousness which is manifesting itself. And what you said is right. It first conceives, then it manifests in detail, and then the third level where it goes into ignorance. The supermind
Well, that's part of the real ideas. You see, the real ideas in this distinct creation, which is the earth, the adventure of consciousness was actually to start with the opposite of what that spirit was, which is darkness. Pure light became darkness, became matter, became unconsciousness. But behind that darkness, behind that unconsciousness, behind that obscurity, the pure light of spirit is there, but involved. Yes. And that's one of the key notions of Sri Aurobindo spirituality and philosophy, is that the evolution is only following the processes of involutions. So in seed state, in matter, there is all the different layers of other world, which in its descent of the supreme reality into matter lies dormant. Mm. And in the appropriate time, all the real ideas manifest the form of what it was intended. First the material form, then the material form are activated by life. It's not just dead organisms, then life. From that stream of life come desire, because there is a realm of ignorance and separations. And then came mind, the thinking mind. And this is, in real ideas, concretizing itself into the thinking mind, is what was, Krishnamurti said the same thing, crowning the actual purpose of the scenario of the plan, is that the being become conscious of himself, whereas before it was all unconscious. But for a long time, we're still in Avidya collectively. Only few individuals are awakening into that spiritual truth. But there is a difference between awakening to the actual truth of the spirituality and embracing the notions, the concept of spirituality. And like I heard when I was living in Australia, some people said, "Oh, I am so spiritual. Oh, I feel so spiritual." You see, so there is there's people who are completely deluded, thinking they are spiritual, but it's their ego who is spiritual. But it's laughable, but this is actually...
I've seen that. I've seen many people like that. In fact, some people say, "Oh, I'm an instrument of the supermind.
That's it.
Light is coming to me."
Yeah.
I've seen the world a little bit.
Well, actually, when I went to Bangalore one day, there was a couple, European couple. They came to sit. I was waiting for Angelique, who was buying fabrics in the shops of Bangalore. And I was sitting quietly with a book on Sri Aurobindo, most likely. And that couple said, they introduced themselves as guru, and that they were supramentals, they reached the supramental. If I wanted to come to their ashram, and they said, "No, thank you." But you see, but imagine that if I'm gullible, you see, I'm lost, I'm a Westerners from Occident, I come for spirituality. Usually, as for the many Occidentals, they come to India for spirituality. There is that couple, and then here they're supramental. So therefore, I think they're more mental than supramental.
They're not even mental, leave alone the supermental.
So you see, and that's why for Krishnamurti, the discerning mind is the first steps in his teaching, to discern what is false to what is true, to awaken the intelligence. And all in his teaching, he put a lot of emphasis of the awakening of intelligence.
You see, now just maybe we'll have to switch over to something else. All these notions, whatever we said about the thought or the idea or the psychic being and the observer and the observed, there is a great clarity or clarification that Krishnamurti brings in. But my question is, does he bring anything about the yoga aspect, the path? This is a clarification, he's kind of, taking away the cobwebs of the mind, if I can say that. But then where is the path of yoga, the path of, where you do something, it's a kind of a sadhana. Has he given us a sadhana path to come out, or only is it the mind? You clarify the mind, you silence the mind, etc., etc. But as we see in Sri Aurobindo, there's a specific path to follow. Not only Life Divine, but he has given a beautiful comparative book called The Synthesis of Yoga. So that kind of a comparative work I don't find in J. Krishnamurti. Maybe I'm wrong, I've not read too much of Krishnamurti.
I think this is actually, like I mentioned before, Krishnamurti was a world speaker, and so he actually saw his teaching, he used a language, and every few years he changes his language. Very simple terms,
yes,
but he changes. Why does he change his language? Because his followers, his adept, I said followers because they follow, they're not really learning what Krishnamurti is about. They want to follow, they want to feel secure with the teaching of Krishnamurti. They identify themselves with Krishnamurti. And so these followers, they identify themselves with the words, whatever the words, and then they feel very comfortable. And so therefore, that's why Krishnamurti was very reluctant to use word God, because it was so, at the time, so misused. And then yoga, which at the time of Sri Aurobindo was not misused, but at the time of Krishnamurti, when he traveled, was very misused.
It is most misused now, not even Krishnamurti. Now everything is part of yoga. Speech yoga, thought yoga, exercise yoga,
So
my knee yoga.
so it means that it's not that Krishnamurti didn't have a yoga to teach or a path to teach, but he was very worried about the language that he used and all these archetypal systems which are traditional, which one conform without any intelligence, and one feel very proud. You know, like in France, there is a lot of people, they say, oh, my yoga is better, or your yoga, oh, this is intellectual, or this, c'est always sort of comments that they have. So, Krishnamurti, talking about yoga, I would say that he was also an integral thinker, meaning that in putting into traditional world, it combined jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, and karma yoga.
Well, sorry, I don't see anything of bhakti there.
But one has to study and
No,
go
that's
through.
why, because you have said it, I'm asking you, because in Sri Aurobindo, bhakti, jnana and karma are very obvious because of the synthesis of
Can
yoga.
I continue? Because that's...
Yeah, now please tell me something about Krishnamurti.
Yes, it's very important because...
Yeah, because that's one of the major, when I've read some critics, most of them have pointed out, oh, Krishnamurti, nothing of bhakti, nothing of surrender, nothing of devotion. I said, my God, how can there be one philosophy like that? Can you throw some light on that?
You see, this is very complex because as soon as there is an interpreter, there is a sage, contemporary sage, who wrote about Sri Aurobindo. And you know what he said about Sri Aurobindo supramental? It's not supramental. It's mental. That means he's created the supramental with his mind. So it doesn't really exist. So what I'm trying to say, it's very easy to misconceive a sage, whoever it is, because we reduce him to our understanding. To cut this short and to express that actually Krishnamurti integrate pure love, pure intelligence, and pure actions. What he means by actions, he actually says that life is relationship. So relationship with things, with people, and with ideas, because we think. And that relationship, the quality of that relationship, is going to govern our actions. What now? Our actions are based on ego, on separations, so there is conflict. In a utilitarian society, for example, one who is conditioned by Unitarian society, will look at things to be used. And so, as a result, it will be a society conditioned by using things. Krishnamurti explained that this is wrong relationship, but you can't escape relationship. Life is actions, and actions is actually creations. What he means by creations, that true actions come from the outcome of realizing truth. Truth is that pure intelligence, but intelligence devoid of love is not intelligence. If I look at a tree and I only look at it through my intelligence separated from my heart, I don't see the tree. I see it intellectually, but I don't actually see it what it is. Only love gives you self-knowledge. These are basically, you can find that in all the work of Krishnamurti, where love, intelligence, and actions are unified, not separated. If it's not first you develop jnana, then you develop bhakti, then you do an actions. No, this separation, that's fragmentations. These three comes together. But it's combined into that unfragmented mind that he called choiceless awareness. A consciousness which is à la fois, so at the same time, passive, feminine, receptive, and vigilant, active, which is actions. And we found that in the synthesis of yoga, Sri Aurobindo used basically the same terms here and there about that vigilant passivity, meaning in one way you have to be calm, gentle, bienveillant, gentle, receptive, and then you have also to be vigilant and active and have force. So the two goes into the same wholeness, and that is to get there. You have to have a perfect masculine and feminine love and intelligence all integrated into the one. And
No, Dominic, this is what you are explaining is clear. But when I mean the word sadhana or yoga that Sri Aurobindo has given us,
yes,
he gives all the jnana and marga, bhakti, etc. in relation to God or the divine.
yes,
Not among the human being, that's a different thing. But devotion to God or action, how we do some kind of a dedication, surrendering our action to the divine.
yeah.
But this element of the divinity is absent in Krishnamurti.
Actually, it's completely the opposite. I take an example. In one of his early writing, he said to some of his disciples that he said, instead of going to the temple and revere the gods, why don't you take care of the poor dogs which is here? Why don't you take care of the land instead of leaving the land, littering the land? So you go to the temple, but then you neglect the land. You don't see the dog who is suffering. And Krishnamurti was deeply hurt when he saw the suffering of the dog. A little bit like the story with Ramakrishna, when he saw the buffalo being whipped, he felt the mark. Krishnamurti was highly sensitive, and he was a lover of life and a lover of nature. And he saw the beloved. Actually, he says, for many of his writing, he talks about the beloved behind the flower, beloved behind the dog, the tree. The beloved he lived it, is everywhere. And that's a divine expressions of his realization. The only thing, like I repeat myself, is that when he talked to the public, he was very careful with his words because they were misused. So at first, when he spoke to his disciple or to his audience, when he talked about the beloved, about the divine, that he was directly drinking from that source, straight away they idolized him and made him a god. And they were not interested about the truth, they were interested about idolizing Krishnamurti. And he saw that. So as a result, he stopped that language that he had about the beloved and the divine. And then he went to the problematic of his audience, which is self-knowledge. They were ignorant of themselves. And so self-knowledge is the knowledge of oneself as one actually is. I can think I'm divine, and then I go home and I scream to my wife or I beat my dog. Or where is divinity there? I just project the idea that I'm divine, but the actuality I'm not, because I beat my dogs and I scream to my wife, you see. And that's Krishnamurti is more interested about what actually is. And you can't learn if you project to yourself an ideal image which doesn't correspond to actually one is.
This is what actually I've understood all that is driving me to conclude that Krishnamurti is some sort of a modern Buddha. You see, in the times of Buddha, he did the same thing. He rejected the Vedas, especially he rejected the idea of God.
He didn't reject anything, he rejects the words. Krishnamurti doesn't reject the Veda, but he rejects the traditions, the following, and the words, but not the truth.
Not the truth, but he said, no, we don't have the full, previously, prior to Buddha, people always said Vedas is the last word. He said, no, that's not the last word, because there's nothing called God, nothing called Atman. So here also we see J.D. Krishnamurti also not speaking about divine, not speaking about God. What he said is true, that maybe he didn't want to be misinterpreted, the words misused. But the Buddha said the same thing. What's the use of you people that I speak about God and all that? You take care of the animals, you take care of the birds, you take care of the human suffering. So Buddha was more interested in taking away the suffering of humanity, and by means, he said, I've given you the means.
And
but you don't have to go to the rituals and the shastras and the shlokas.
And see God in everything.
See, so that is why I told you before also, there's some kind of an approach of the modern Buddha.
Yeah.
Is taking away the negativity of life and also all the traditional, the blocks. So Buddha brought in something new.
Yeah.
Completely new, bereft for the Vedas and all the Upanishads. Because he said, no, I want to have a clean path, a clear path, without the heavy load of the tradition.
Very much.
And I see the same tendency in Krishnamurti.
The only difference there, I mean, it's not a difference that having an insight into the matter is not against the tradition, the actual founder of who are living the living truth, whether it's Shankara, the Buddha, V.Ananda, Ramakrishna, Sri Aurobindo, Sri Krishna. Krishnamurti is not against any of that. For him, they are all living truth. But as soon as you try to catch it in through a tradition and you follow without any kind of understanding and self-transformations, you're just happy to go to the temple, doesn't matter how you behave afterwards. You go to the Samandhi in the ashram, and then afterwards you may misbehave. And I think Sri Aurobindo and Mother would prefer you don't go to the Samadhi, but you behave, you take care of life, because life is one. And if you don't love that life, which is there, you're living in a world of illusion, the world of your own making. And so Krishnamurti was very aware of that. So it's not that he's against tradition, it's more how the follower distort the original teachers. They distort. Sometimes trying to do good, they make it worse.
Yeah,
and then they give false information.
Whatever he has taught, very much against the tradition, not to follow, not to make him a god. But today, what is the status of J.D. Krishnamurti? There are so many hundreds of schools about him. There are quite many followers about him. So I think humanity cannot get away from this habit of deifying somebody. Anybody with knowledge, anybody with realization, because the human element is like this, that they want to follow the truth in the form of somebody.
That's it.
Truth is too abstract.
Yes.
So I want a Krishnamurti, I want a Ramakrishna. Because you see, we are not Buddhas, we are not Ramakrishnas, we need a guru. That's why the concept of guru comes in. Maybe Krishnamurti doesn't want a guru. But the human psychology, I have a teacher, I have a guru, I have a parent.
Yes.
So the child, when he grows up, he wants to hold the hand of somebody. So this is exactly the human tendency, that we want to follow somebody. Even the Buddha followed somebody in the beginning, and then he became the Buddha. Even our J.D. Krishnamurti followed somebody in the Theosophical Society. Then he rejects all that and becomes somebody. So I think we cannot kind of deny this need of the human society to want to have some kind of a model, spiritual model. Even in the common life, we want a best of this thing, best of that thing. So I think what I want to tell you is, in conclusion, that J.D. Krishnamurti has tried a lot not to be the guru. He has said all this thing, what he has said, clarified. But he has himself become a very big guru in the West as in the East and India. There are plenty of schools which have written lots of education system. You see, we are experts in making a church out of somebody. Christ didn't want to be a Christ.
The school of Krishnamurti can't be assimilated to a church. The idea is that an adult is so conditioned, for Krishnamurti, the adult is so conditioned by so much knowledge and is so full of informations that it's practically impossible to uncondition the mind of an adult. Whereas if we start at school to show to children the wholeness of life, not just to teach mathematics, geography, and to earn a living, but as well to be sensitive to the flowers, to the tree, to the wholeness of life. And that was the basic reason of the school. He saw that as a strategic, that since we can't change the adult, maybe if we start very young, I suppose like mother school, the same, people who were educated, children who were educated in mother school, they were exposed to truth that any other school, they would never have been exposed. So it's the same idea that Krishnamurti had. But I just want to say one more, where I think that Krishnamurti and Sri Aurobindo coincide in somewhere, even so there are differences. That even, I've got a quote here, a beautiful quote in my article, that Sri Aurobindo said that you must study the Shastra you must study the sacred writing, but you must not confine yourself to it. And you must not be dependent, and you must not limit yourself to the sacred writing. And then after, the most essential thing, and like there is actually what Krishnamurti says, you must position yourself in your true soul, because that true soul is the light. And he said, not at the end, but at the very beginning. And this is exactly what Krishnamurti is saying all the time. Be a light into yourself. Be a light in yourself. Don't depend on another. But then he continues on, Sri Aurobindo, and the quote is in that text coming from the synthesis of yoga, is that you shouldn't be the sadhaka of a sacred scripture, no matter how wide, no matter how thorough it is. It's because you are a sadhaka of the infinite, meaning the infinite goes beyond all the writing, all the gurus. This is a direct touch with the infinite, which we are. But only the true soul is in touch with it.
Yeah.
And then you don't need the tradition. It's a bit like that. A sadhana, you learn swimming, for example, swimming pool. Angelique swim very beautifully. You learn to swim. At the beginning, you don't know how to swim. You need a guru. So you put your hand like that, you go like that. But when you know how to swim, you forget about all the technique, all the sadhana, all of that is finished. You are living in a living truth. You are swimming. You are at one with the water. But there is no separation.
That's the whole question is when. When you have learned swimming, you don't need a guru.
That's it.
That's what Sri Aurobindo says in his article, chapter called The Four Aids. The true scripture is within. The guru is within. The last word is here. So he also points out that everything is within. But the outer is a necessary stepping stone, if I can say, to the future.
I'm completely...
Well, now coming to the last point, Dominique, I think
we could talk.
You have ended your article very beautifully, saying that Krishnamurti is the seer of the present and Sri Aurobindo is the seer of the future. What did you mean by that?
Well, the Krishnamurti is a seer of the present in a sense that he tackled the most important factors of the problematic of mankind, in which mankind is in a dead hand, blocked by the ego. And so therefore all his teaching is about the genesis of the ego, how to understand the processes of what he call the processes of the I, the processes of thinking, and how through that understanding, through that self-knowledge of oneself, directly one learns to free oneself from that ego, the processes of thinking, which automatically open you up to the universal life. So I think that's whereas Sri Aurobindo, with his incredible work on the manifestations, on nature, on creations, and all the different strats, and the strats to be evolved, the strat to come, the plane of consciousness to come in the future, it's limited to a true searcher who has dedicated his life to the study of Sri Aurobindo. A true seeker. You can study all your life Sri Aurobindo and miss completely what is meaning, because you're quite happy just to be a follower and feeling the security that you're an Aurobindonian. Yeah. But that's not what Sri Aurobindo wants. He wants Sadhaka to awaken.
I agree with you, because one of the things that you have maybe not mentioned there, when he says he's the seer of the future, yes, Sri Aurobindo speaks a lot about the future of not only the individual, the Superman and all that, but he elaborates a lot about the future of the earth consciousness, the humanity. How humanity, the society, the geopolitical society, all this will weld into one human unity. So this is the grand vision of the future of humanity, and the individual transforming himself into the new race called the Superman. So these are all things of the future. Whereas this kind of a vision, as you said rightly, J.T. Krishnamurti is in the present, because he wants to take away the individual present out of the mesh that you said rightly, that we are enmeshed in the ego, in the individual ego, but he doesn't give us the global consciousness or the global future. So there is a difference of emphasis. Krishnamurti emphasizes on the individual, Sri Aurobindo on the individual and the collective, and not only the present, but the future. So there's a beautiful distinction you have brought in. And I think, although you have quoted that in your own previous book, I think in this book that we are going to bring about, called Sri Aurobindo and World Thinkers, all your articles will be published there by our research center, Sri Aurobindo Center for Advanced Research. We hope to do that in another couple of months. But this will be a very big eye-opener to the Western world and to the Indian masters, thinkers, to see that Sri Aurobindo is not somebody of the past. People say, oh, it's 100 years back, he wrote the Life Divine. But as you rightly said, no, he's a man of the future. And to quote the mother, of course, she herself says, he's the avatar of the future. An avatar is not just necessarily a huge Mahayogi figure. But when do you call somebody an avatar? An avatar is the incarnation of the divine who has brought in a new consciousness that humanity will follow. So that is where Sri Aurobindo comes in. It brings in a new consciousness called the supramental consciousness, which will be manifesting. In fact, just today I was reading an article on 29th of February 1956, the new consciousness called the supramental consciousness. It manifested upon earth, and then Mother says is now over humanity, and now we are only, it's a matter of time.
That's it.
But at least the future doors are open. We are marching towards that. She says, in spite of human resistance, imbecility, and all that, humanity will achieve, because Sri Aurobindo has brought in, given that promise of the future of man. I think it's been a wonderful discussion, Dominic, and I'm happy you happen to be here in Pondicherry. You have come to visit us, but I think it's a great occasion that you are here at our Aurovidya retreat, which is a beautiful place for, exactly I had envisaged this place for such discussions,
Yes, sir.
such philosophic discussions from individuals, little groups, where there is a retreat and there is a go within. Retreat is not a space, it is within, going within. And that's what I mean by retreat. And here it is, my dream is getting fulfilled somewhere or the other with people and friends like you. Merci beaucoup, Dominic.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Thank you for allowing me to speak today.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful discussion.
And I really appreciate the quality of explorations and the quality of an open mind.
Yeah.
So necessary for realizing that unity of life, which is unfortunately impossible while we are still in the ego state.
Right.
Because my knowledge is better than your knowledge, and then there is a dead hand.
Right then. Thank you very much, Angelique.